Hello and welcome to the Tech in the Hood podcast. I'm your host, Ahmed Flex Omar. Tech in the Hood is a storytelling podcast that explores the past, present, and future of Chicago's cultural identity through conversations about community and technology. Each week, I reconnect with the friends and mentors who have shared this journey and spotlight new voices and innovators building the future of the Tech in the Hood.
Welcome back to Tech in the Hood, the show that brings you business, culture, art, and technology. Hey, Flex, how are you?
I am good. So you are in my seat.
I am.
Semhar.
I staged a coup.
I mean, you and Martina, the good thing is you and Martina have already, met.
Yes.
So this is going to be interesting. I don't know how I feel being in the other seat again. It's always a surreal experience. How do you feel being in my seat?
I feel great. This is awesome. This is such a cool setup, and great vibes.
Even though it's not Women's Month, it's not March. So I'm doing my part for women's empowerment.
Okay, I see you.
You feel powerful?
I do.
Okay, awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, then let's introduce you to the audience. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I'm Semhar Amdemichael. I am a marketer, media consultant, and an investor based here in Chicago.
Incredible. So I always like to tell folks that are listening to the podcast on the reason why I have someone on the podcast, but also like how we met. The reason they'll find out. I mean, you have an incredible wealth of knowledge. You've been in marketing and tech and business for such a long time. So there's just so much that you can, add to the conversation in terms of, tech, but also business, culture, and even art. We'll dig into your fashion background. We're not gonna, let you slide, But the way we connected was, through mutual friends, and you went to U Chicago,
Yep.
And so had many friends over the years from University Chicago. Even though I never went to U Chicago, I'm a graduate of Loyola University. So y'all are South Side, we're North Side. It's all good. It's fun. But I always felt a connection to U Chicago students just because, people, a lot of international students. I'm an immigrant myself, so also there's a term that I like to use, third culture, kids.
Yeah.
So for me, I was born in Africa, grew up, in the Middle East in Abu Dhabi, and then I've been living here for a long time, so your identity is, fluid,
Absolutely.
So I've always connected with a lot of U Chicago, people, because there's just that international, aura. So what are yourself? What are your earliest memories?
Oh, yeah. So I actually, similar to you, I think we have that shared kind of mutual experience in that I was born abroad as well. I was born in Ethiopia, and I was raised in Uptown, sort of grew up in Chicago, and a great experience sort of going to the University of Chicago, studying economics. And I completely relate on like that fluid identity. And I think Chicago's been such a great backdrop because it is so multicultural. It's such a thriving city. And so, I would say a lot of my early memories are, about that.
Okay. You always know you were going to go to U Chicago?
You know what? I didn't. I actually, I was, fluid in terms of like where I wanted to go. I looked at places like Georgetown and NYU. But, I think Chicago, the University of Chicago is just such an incredible institution. My dad actually had a large hand in sort of convincing me and being like, why would you go elsewhere when there's like such incredible legacy and incredible resources here? So he definitely helped to influence my decision as well.
And what was that experience, for you? I mean, all the Nobel laureates and
Yeah.
especially in econ,
Yeah, it was rigorous. It was definitely really stressful, really intense. And I think for me, it was a little unique in that I didn't want to necessarily go the typical investment banking sort of finance route.
hmm
But I had the leeway to kind of explore a full like liberal arts education and kind of explore what I wanted to do. So it was a great experience in that sense because I got exposure to so much and a really great, intense education
Yeah,
in economics as well, which is a lot of fun, but also like, a lot of work.
for sure. So, how did you make the pivot into digital marketing upon graduating?
Yeah, so one of my first roles after school was at Vogue magazine.
hmm
So I moved to New York City and I had this really great opportunity. As you know, like Vogue magazine is, an iconic print publication. But as, their readership was changing to consuming media online, being on their mobile devices, they wanted to think of different ways to connect with their readership. And one of those ways was launching a variety of like digital properties and shoppable ads and, interactive things like that. So I had the opportunity to do analytics and work on brand reports and sort of use numbers to tell a story to marketers like Fendi and Louis Vuitton. And it was a great kind of first experience, and it kind of whetted my appetite and made me more curious about the industry. But I would say that was like one of my first kind of jobs in the space. Um, and thereafter, I landed my first agency gig. So I came back to Chicago, and I will say a lot of my journey has been me bopping back and forth between Chicago and New York.
Okay.
But I came back to Chicago with my first agency gig. I started at Starcom over on Wacker at the Leo Burnett building. And that was really like a crash course into the ad industry. So I learned about communications planning and media planning and media math and how to work with clients, how to present to clients, how to create cool presentations and sort of analyze data and all of that like really foundational knowledge. And I would say like around that time, a lot of media was changing.
hmm
And so due to the advent of like digital technologies and big data,
Yeah.
marketers were starting to take advantage of automation in marketing. And that's what really led me down the path that I currently specialize in, which is ad tech and digital media.
Very cool. So let's go back a little bit to,
Yeah.
Vogue.
Yes.
That's a big deal.
hmm
Um, d I believe that you were part of a fashion club at
Yeah, it was.
Chicago.
Yeah.
You feel like that helped you get into
Yeah.
get that gig with
I think it
Vogue?
did. I think
Okay.
it did because in that like that fashion club that I started, a lot of it was getting brands to sponsor the fashion show,
Mhm.
and so kind of emailing them with like a little pitch and saying, hey, like we are having this fashion show, we anticipate 2,000 students with high buying intent, like just
Mhm, mhm,
all of
mhm.
these ways to like merchandise the show and kind of drum up interest. And I'm also just a fashion lover. Like growing up, my mom went to hair school. So she would have Vogue magazines just like laying around the house.
Mm.
So I've always like gravitated to media, to just like the glamour of some of those publications and specifically Vogue. So it was a really cool experience and an opportunity.
Might have to call mom to get some baby pictures.
I mean, yeah, I have so many. I have like a lot, and I'm sure she'd be happy to share.
Perfect. All right, we'll make that call soon. But it's interesting. So you're graduating at an interesting time where marketing as a discipline is changing because of tech,
Right.
and it's becoming now more about numbers.
Absolutely.
And traditional marketing was not that. And so because of that, and you working at Leo Burnett. Well, first of all, tell us a little bit about Leo Burnett for folks that are not, from, Chicago,
Yeah.
and also folks that are not from the ad, world that
Sure.
might not be familiar with Leo Burnett. And thirdly, since we're talking about analytics,
Yeah.
turns out that we have a strong following in Japan
Oh, hey.
for our
Oh, that's so
podcast,
funny.
so
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
yeah.
Yeah, so Leo Burnett is one of the storied ad agencies here in Chicago,
Hmm.
and they have a lot of amazing sort of Fortune 500 companies, and they are actually an ad agency. But within the ad agency, and they're part of a larger holding company, Publicis. So they are a creative agency, but they also I was at Starcom, which is a media agency, and so yeah, it was a really great experience. Agency life is intense, so the hours were pretty intense.
Hmm.
And the culture is just really great because you have people from so many different backgrounds, young people that are just breaking into the industry and getting exposure to all of these amazing brands and companies, that work with the agency.
Yeah, I sure remember Starcom.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, but it's a great learning ground if
Yeah.
you're like fresh out of school and you, are still kind of learning and,
No, for sure. I
developing your
mean, it's
skill set.
interesting. I told you I went to Loyola, right?
Yeah.
And so but I was a transfer student from community college. And while I was at the community college, my major was computer science, and I worked, in tech. I had started a tech company on the west side of Chicago, still around till today. It's called Intelligence, and
Okay.
Bashir, and actually the whole entire Intelligence, team were on the podcast. We had a
That's
special
so
episode,
cool. I love that.
just get to reminisce a little. But when I transferred, I was going to the business school. I decided to switch majors because I wanted to learn more about business. I became an accounting major.
Hmm.
I noticed was a lot of the business, students were either electing to be finance, majors or marketing majors.
Yeah.
And through that, the kids that graduated in marketing, that's how I learned about Starcom.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
pretty popular.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, huge agency. They
Mm-hmm.
get a lot of great brands that work with them as well. They're always winning new business. And I would say more recently, as a holding company, Publicis is really investing in technology in incredible ways. So it just continues to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're here at a time at, like the analytics, and you're here in Chicago. Did you go back to New York, or did you stay in Chicago?
Oh, yeah. So I did eventually go back to New York, but I would say after Starcom and after sort of like AdTech and digital media took off, I took on a few roles in Chicago at different agencies. I was at Omnicom, I was at Dentsu Aegis, I was at like a mobile startup called Cargo. And then I landed a job in New York City at an agency called Assembly Global.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a few years before COVID. And that was a really great opportunity because I was a vice president of a business unit, a multi-million-dollar business unit. And I got the opportunity to manage a pretty sizable team and also work on things like new business pitches and thought leadership.
That's
So,
really cool.
yeah.
You mentioned Dentsu.
Yeah.
So I know them because of Gucci. Is
Yes.
there a link there?
Yeah, I actually, there definitely is. I mean, Dentsu has a lot of luxury advertisers that work with them.
Mm-hmm.
Gucci's one of them, of course. And I actually have experience kind of pitching that business. So, really
Oh, look
great.
at you, so humble.
Really
I
great.
worked at Dentsu.
Yeah.
I might have made a pitch, a few times.
Yeah. So, really great experience all around. And it's just, really compelling ad agency.
That's really cool. So yeah, you just kept on going.
Yeah.
Staying busy,
Busy.
and then all of a sudden you found yourself managing people.
Yeah.
How was that?
I would say managing people, I definitely evolved in my approach to managing people. And it's a great experience if you have the opportunity to do it. But I think it requires a lot of work if you do it well. Because essentially you're having to do a lot of pre-work in terms of understanding your team, understanding their incentives and like how they're motivated, understanding their strengths, and areas of, growth, and really building relationships. I also think that, I really grew to appreciate that like listening to people and taking their feedback is such a key to success when you're managing people as well. And that's certainly something that evolved over time, because I think there was definitely a point in my experience managing people where I would just like not listen as much, and I definitely could have been a little bit more responsive. But you kind of grow and learn, and I'm so lucky I had the opportunity to, learn by trial and error and sort of update my approach to be inclusive, to be a leader, and really help people along the way.
Did you have any leadership training, or was it just trial by fire?
A bit of both. I was lucky to have some leadership training. I also had incredible bosses that I reported into that also set a really great example in some cases. And then, definitely a lot of trial and error as well, and just kind of learning along the way.
For sure, for sure. And you came back to Chicago again at some point?
I did, yeah, post-COVID.
Post-COVID.
Yeah, so I've been here since, and it's been great to be back.
Very cool. And then was it during that time you started doing some work with a VC group, I think, LongJump?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually, and for those that don't know, LongJump it's a founder-led investment fund based here in Chicago. So I actually started investing probably in 2021 as a limited partner. So that means that I not only invested, but I'm part of a network of other investors and operators that form the community that supports the founders. And we support via, making connections, as well as subject matter expertise. So in my case, given that I have such a background in digital media and advertising, that's an area that I can sort of assist in with some of these startups as they're developing their marketing strategies or understanding, their target audiences and things like that.
Go to market and
all of that fun stuff.
All that good stuff. So
Yeah.
that's interesting. So that makes you guys a little bit more unique than other VC
Absolutely, yeah.
led funds.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about the difference between you guys?
Yeah. So I actually I was introduced to the fund through my friend and someone who I really admire, who's Gary Cooper. So he's a general partner at the fund. He's also an entrepreneur himself. So he's CEO and founder of Reaply. And that is, it's a startup based here in Chicago, all about the circular economy. And so the idea really resonated with me because being in media, I had been pitched so many times by technology startups, media startups. And one thing that I noticed is that there's like a lack of representation. And so LongJump really jumped out to me because it seeks to directly support entrepreneurs of all backgrounds with capital and with connections. And I think that's just, that's really compelling, because if you think about some of the stats, it's like Black women-led startups get less than 1% of funding, of VC funding, but they're one of the, most rapidly growing groups of entrepreneurs. So I thought it was really cool that, they are founder-led. It's all about underrepresented founders and, companies that sort of work with underrepresented communities. It's growing, and it's really cool to see the diverse portfolio of companies that they've invested in. It's over 30 companies to date, and it's been really exciting, a really great learning opportunity that kind of borrows from some of the past work that I've done in terms of just working with different startups and technology and media.
No, that's great. So it's mission driven, and we're talking, stats. I think there's a stat where women of color accounted for 64% of new women-led organizations, and but the capital funding, is very low.
Yeah.
Right. So, but we gotta, we're a Chicago podcast, so we gotta shout out Chicago.
Absolutely.
Chicago has the highest number of women-led, and founded startups in the world.
Yeah, which is so exciting. It's great.
So for you, what like makes Chicago unique for founders and entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I think there are a few things, but I will say, I think to touch on some of that point, I think it's really cool that there's now appreciation that entrepreneurs can thrive outside of markets like Silicon Valley and New York and Boston. And Chicago is a really great example of that. And I think it's because it's the cost of living is a lot better here than the coasts, and that obviously makes a huge difference to someone that's bootstrapping or sort of starting a business. We also have great institutions here like the University of Chicago, and that means that there's access to great talent. And then I think historically Chicago, even like going back to like the 1800s, it's always been a hub for industry, manufacturing, finance, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a really rich kind of history and culture there. And then lastly, I would say there's really great precedents of companies starting and scaling successful businesses here, including unicorns like Tempest Labs and Groupon as well. So there's some really great precedents.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, the ecosystem in Chicago is unique, but a lot of it is also the people,
Absolutely.
and the Midwest culture. People tend to be more collaborative, and welcoming, and so yeah, it's definitely a great space. And plus, if you're building a startup, you're in a major city, you're in a big hub, so you're gonna find customers, and you're gonna be able to test, your products and services and see what works and what doesn't work. But then you also hit on the cost of living, and that's really important when you're an entrepreneur and you're starting out and you're putting all your eggs in your business. So some people call their business their baby. I advise against that, but but
Yeah.
at the same time, we're emotional beings. We could preach emotional intelligence until we're
You're
forever,
pulling a
but
face. Yeah.
we're still human beings, and so there's that attachment. But the great thing about Chicago is you'll find someone that you can reach out to that would be willing to just give you time and space, to share some advice, and sometimes
Yeah.
5 minutes with someone who is subject matter expert is all you need. It's almost like, should I exit this highway? Should I stay on this highway? So like, yeah. And entrepreneurship is, a very lonely, profession. So being in a place where, people are willing to like be vulnerable and have
Yeah.
conversations, with you, helps.
Absolutely.
So it's been exciting to see like all the new companies and that are coming out of Chicago have come out of Chicago. But then historically, right? I think I mentioned in believe episode 0 of Tech in the Hood when I was introducing the podcast.
Mhm.
Motorola, is from here. So if we want to talk tech,
Yeah.
right?
Wow.
And the first cell phone call was made out of Chicago.
Pretty
So
incredible.
yeah, it's incredible. So
Yeah.
we're talking, and now we live on our phones and we have smartphones, and we talked about how marketing's changed. Marketing's changed because of the mobile phone,
Oh, 100%.
and also because everything became mobile first, right? So there's
Yeah.
geek out for a second, like there's HTML. That's the original internet in terms of like building websites and so on. But then HTML5, came in and people were like, yeah, we're just focusing on mobile,
Technology.
technologies. And, till today, when, I'm building a website, I have to see how it looks on my Samsung phone.
Yeah.
And I waited for a long time to get an iPhone, but now that I have an IT consulting company,
Yeah.
I I got an iPhone, and then it got me good, and now I have an Apple Watch.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you're locked
Yeah,
in.
you're locked
Okay.
in, and it gets you. Yeah,
Yeah.
the Church of Apple.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've had a Mac. I
Mhm.
love the iPads. But it never really got around to having
Mm.
an iPhone. And at some point, I was like, "Oh, this all makes
Just
sense."
yeah.
Now. And then, somebody said, "Oh, you have an iPhone now? We thought you were always poor because you own the Samsung." Like,
That's so funny.
yeah, I didn't know, having an iPhone reflected your tax bracket.
I mean, it shouldn't, but it oddly does, and it is really interesting because people will be like, it's such a brand signifier,
It's such
a lifestyle
exactly. It's a
signifier.
lifestyle signifier. So people are just throwing shades.
Right.
For me, I'm just like,
That's so
I went from
funny.
BlackBerry to Android, and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna
Yeah.
do this. And I'm always, kind of like the anti, crowd, and but shout out
Yeah.
to Apple.
I
The
mean, yeah.
iPhone
Shout
is
out to Apple.
pretty dope.
It is, and it's like, and you get to escape the scourge of like the green bubbles.
Oh yeah.
Because I feel like people will
the
judge you and be like, "Oh
oh
my God, no! Why did you text me back with with the
yeah.
green bubbles?"
And then for a Samsung, user, every time an iPhone person clicks like or something, or
Yeah.
like, it comes as a text message.
Oh yeah, it
So
does.
and so
I've seen
just
that.
like it. And then when you change your mind, now they don't like it. They loved
Yeah,
it.
yeah, right, right,
It's
right.
like,
You're
all
like,
right,
okay, this is
all right. Well,
not.
thanks to multiple text
eh.
messages. Yeah. But that's really, fascinating. And then kind of like in 2010, 2011, 2012, like around that time,
Yeah,
I spent some time at Stanford, because a lot of those companies, kind of like the Web 2, were coming out of Silicon Valley, right?
that's
And
right.
iOS versus Android was the big, war.
Yeah,
So I'm like, yeah, I got to be there,
yeah, absolutely.
And social media was not what it is, today, where, you know, these days you can be all over the world and you're getting instant news on
All
you
the
on
time.
YouTube.
Yeah, on demand,
So
all
on
all day,
demand,
every day.
everything
Yeah,
everything is, changed. So you
yeah,
can work remote, you can be everywhere and anywhere.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
even the media is now talking about a new term. They always like to like create drama. I think the term is what, quiet vacationing. So
Yeah, not to be confused with quiet quitting,
no,
by the way, which is like a whole
it's
thing.
the whole thing,
That was a whole
right? And so
phenomenon.
the quiet vacationing is when people are going on these vacations, but they're not telling their bosses. They're just working remotely.
Yeah, and you would never know.
You'd never know,
That's so funny.
and then so I saw the report, and then I always go to the comments.
Yeah,
On YouTube, so I was checking the comments, and
yeah,
someone wrote, "Yeah, I was living in California." I was like, "But I could live in Hawaii." I was
yeah.
there for 5 years, and nobody knew.
That's so funny because I had an experience with an employee that did that during
Hmm.
COVID.
Hmm.
And it was like, why does this like IP address
Hmm.
in like Western Europe keep showing up? And it was just someone on the team decided to work remotely from like Belgium. So I do think that that's a funny kind of phenomenon, especially coming out of COVID.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's almost like the rules have changed after the pandemic,
Yeah.
and it's more of a flex economy.
Yeah, right. No pun
Yeah.
intended. Yeah, yeah.
You gotta be, flexible. I mean, even office spaces are now called flex spaces.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for my royalties. Everyone's now
Any day now.
everyone now is using the word flex, but it's good.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's good for my
No,
SEO.
yeah, I
Yeah.
bet. That's so cool actually. You were like first to market that.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
now all those jokes that were made about me in the past with my name flex can stop,
Right.
but it's all right. So now we're in the age of AI.
That's right. Yeah.
What an exciting, time. I mean, are you
Absolutely.
excited? Because there's mixed reviews. There was a time when I posted one of my reels, and somebody on Instagram just said that I'm ending humanity, or like just came at me
Wow. Yeah.
really hard.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts?
I mean, yeah, I think it's definitely a really interesting time. I think we're like sort of in the hype cycle right now where it
Hmm.
still remains to be seen what AI can do and what it means for business and education and healthcare. But it is an exciting time. I think ultimately it's going to be a utility
Yep.
and obviously like a really incredible wealth creator. But then on the other end of the spectrum, it's like, is that going to be the case for everybody? And does it have the possibility of sort of, entrenching disparities that already exist in our society when it comes to like education, healthcare, et cetera? Yeah, so I
Well,
think
you
it's,
mentioned the hype part, right? Which
yeah,
is always interesting because right now, and maybe even going back to iPhone, if you talk to somebody about iCloud, they don't think twice about it. But
right.
there was a time when you tell people about their files being in the cloud and they'll look at you crazy.
Yeah, they're
What do you
like,
mean? What are you talking about? My files are in the cloud.
mm,
So it takes time for adoption, but because of the pandemic, this post-COVID world, technology adoption is super, super, super fast.
yeah,
The way, people started using, ChatGPT and Open AI, has been incredible, the rate of, adoption, and also the way it's being updated, constantly.
yeah.
So it's completely uncharted, territory. And so my question for you is like, when you're dealing with businesses, how do you even begin to explain, AI or how they can use it or apply it to their
Yeah.
to their business?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I would say like my experience is really on helping marketers and businesses embrace like algorithmic
Hmm.
media buying and automation. But it's a similar conversation, I would say, as probably the ones that are happening today around AI. I think one thing that really helps is language. And I think for myself as an operator and someone that's like in the trenches of the technology, I have found that sometimes I get lost in the jargon. And when you're speaking to executive audiences, whether that's a CMO or a brand manager, sometimes that jargon can be a little intimidating or it just flat out doesn't make sense. So I think it really helps to educate along the way, simplify language, and really use analogies, use other examples from competitors or like other success stories to make these like highly technical concepts more relatable, more palatable. And I think that really helps. I think testing helps a lot and sort of dipping your toes in some of these technologies before you make a flat out like massive investment in them. I think right now, because it is early stage, it's probably more expensive today than it will be in the future as it becomes more common. So I think testing is really important. I also think that like with testing though, it's one of those things where like I've had this experience where I'll test something with a client, and if I haven't properly set expectations, or if we don't have a clear sense of like what the goals are, how we're going to measure success, they'll be like, we did that and it didn't work, and we're never doing it again. So I think it's just really important to kind of handhold and set expectations along the way. And then I think the other thing is just like being mindful of like regulatory considerations.
Hmm.
I think, at least in the ad world and in marketing, most brands are pretty conservative. They don't want the liability or the press that comes with, having something go astray. So I think I saw last week that, like, for as an example, like TikTok now lets you buy like AI generated ads,
Hmm.
like AI generated influencer ads. So it's an avatar of a person that's like promoting your brand, which sounds really shiny and cool, but something like that, has to go through so much legal approval and compliance. And if it doesn't and you somehow cut corners, you could be in violation of the law
Right.
or in violation of like FTC guidelines. So I think just making sure that you have the right people at the table and that you're leading with ethics and kind of broader business considerations in mind definitely helps a lot.
No, absolutely. So it's going to be exciting to see how governors around AI works, but I feel like we even haven't caught up with Web 2.0, and
Yeah,
Web 3.0,
totally.
stuff is moving so fast,
It really is.
and that's challenging, and also government needs to appeal to younger minds who understand, this technology, so they can, come work for them and
Yeah.
help
Oh,
help them
and they need it.
with this. I mean, it was really sad when I think Mark Zuckerberg was being interviewed by Congress.
Yeah,
I
that's
believe.
exactly
I
where
mean,
my
it
head
was
went.
brutal,
Yeah.
just watching them say things like, "So, can people see my information if I use my email and WhatsApp?"
Right. Or like, yeah, some of the questions were out of control. It was
Right.
like, have you been on the internet before?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't think we know with some of those Congress people if they
Yeah.
have. So,
Yeah. No. So yeah, I think it's important because as we started adopting social media technologies, we saw it as a tool to, you know, stay in touch with family, and then we started using it for business, right? So then that's you're using it for digital marketing, right? And it's
yeah.
free, right? So, but for younger people and specifically, teens and ones that their, minds are not, developed yet,
Right.
um, they were not okay, and suicide rates went up. There's just so many, bad things that happen. So I think we need to have mandated digital literacy
Yeah.
because this stuff is moving, so fast. And right now we're in election year, and some of these deep fakes are
I
pretty
know.
good.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, and so
It's true.
I'm in the business. I understand how AI works, and for the record, I use AI to help non-for-profits and small and medium-sized
Yeah.
businesses. I'm not trying to end the world and end humanity, you know, but
Yeah.
not everyone has the right intentions,
Hmm.
you know. So and technology has always been that, and cybersecurity
Yeah.
is on the rise,
Absolutely.
so protecting your data, and uh, how do you do that, so and it's constantly evolving.
Yeah.
So to me, one of the things I always recommend to business leaders is like definitely have a diverse workforce, but then also you need to reskill your current
So
workforce,
true. Yeah.
because things are changing constantly,
So quickly.
and there's nothing wrong with micro learning,
Yeah.
and people love that. You get it. It's an hour lunch and learn. Bring in an expert and
Yeah.
do a workshop. It's a morale booster. It's good
Mhm.
for team bonding. But and these things are constantly
Changing.
changing. So um,
It's a good point. How
yeah.
do you, because I know you're very immersed in the world of like AI and technology. How do you stay abreast of all the changes and all of the sort of developments as they happen?
Well, people say that I'm hard on myself. I always taking different classes, different certificates. So there are certain gurus in different areas that you know I follow. Uh, but a lot of it is just constantly just reading on new things. So and like sometimes it could be technical papers that are super boring,
Yeah.
white papers that are published, but that's going to impact, the future of work. So the adoption and the enterprise level, of these applications, we might not see them for another 5 years, but I'm sitting there reading them, so my friends are like, it's summer, bro.
Like, let's wrap it up.
It's like, come on, you know,
Yeah.
come to the pool,
Yeah.
but that's the nerdy, kid,
Absolutely.
in me. And if I can use, that knowledge and that information. I mean, one example is my first client is a school teacher, teaches first graders, and he has a non-for-profit, but he didn't have a website. So we built him a website, and we even included a chatbot. And because he's a one-man, operation, that chatbot, answers, questions for his constituency. So to me, that is, a way to use, AI for the
Mhm.
benefit of humanity. And matter of fact, when I started the company, so before ChatGPT became popular, and my whole pitch was around applied intelligence, not just artificial
Yeah.
intelligence, right? So you're combining human intelligence and, AI.
Mm.
And also, we're doing an art show to celebrate, our work with Flex Tech and also Tech in the Hood. And I'm doing it with a bunch of artists. And I'm asking the artists to interpret, how they feel, because like artists have always been, the chronicles of our time. And, so it'll be interesting to see what all the great artwork,
Yeah.
looks like. But yeah, no, it's a very exciting, time. But at the same time, it's important to go back and say, hey, maybe we should slow down, look at the ethics, around this. Also look at, what is the data that's being used, to train these models.
Totally.
Or is it, the,
Yeah.
and the data came from human beings, right?
Right.
So there's bias,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so I'll give you an example. If you type in Google, for example, like show me children in America, you're going to see very happy, kids.
Yeah.
And if you say show me children in Africa,
I
see
knew
like
where that was going.
I'm
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
saying, you
It's
see
a
like
very
miserable and
different
poor,
outcome.
right? But
Yeah.
it's not, people obviously because of the internet, they just like
Yeah.
mob shows up and it's like, oh, is there something conspiracy or sinister going on? No, it's algorithm.
It's
The
algorithm.
because the metadata is coming from NGOs that are doing work,
Work.
in
Right.
those countries,
Yeah.
that's what's, coming up.
Right.
So if you want to change the narrative and you want to change the algorithm and, then think about how, you want to brand, your neighborhood, your country, your continent,
Yeah.
because that's that's how it all comes about. And for me, one of the other reasons I started the podcast is I'd ask people certain questions like if they know certain individuals that have been pioneers in tech, and so for example one of them is Mark Dean. He's African American, he's a computer engineer, inventor, and he is the architect of the modern personal computer from IBM. I mean, so like he owns 9 patents,
Which is incredible. Like,
So for me, it's like we talk a lot about Bill Gates. We talk a
me
lot
too.
about Warren Buffett. Why not Mark Dean?
Yeah.
Let's talk
Yeah.
about Mark Dean. So I mean, I think there was another person, Marianne Croak. I think, yeah. So I think I think she worked at Google, but she created voice over IP. And
Yeah.
that's when we started using, internet, phones.
Mhm.
And that when I started the company with Bashir, Netelligence, that was one of our first products that we
Oh,
offered.
that's so cool.
Is a voice
Yeah.
is the voice over, IP. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, just here, use this,
Right. Yeah.
and they loved it,
Mhm.
and the experience was incredible. But
Yeah.
how many of those, folks, I didn't even
Are
know that it was a
actually.
black woman
Yeah.
that invented,
No, I think it's.
that technology,
Yeah, and I think that's so great that you know that and you're able to have a platform to kind of share some of that. Because I think, like, if you rely on media and the trades, you'll see the most popular companies sort of dominate the conversation, whether that's X and Elon Musk or OpenAI, and it tends to be very kind of a very specific set of folks, and there's so much opportunity to champion other folks that are doing really great,
Yeah.
exciting, breakthrough work, especially as AI continues to grow. And I'm sure there will be innovators of all
No,
backgrounds
for sure.
that come up.
And ones that are from Black and brown communities, so when I told some folks about tech in the hood, the first question is, well, why would you use the word hood and, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. And I'm like, wow, there's just so
Yeah.
many, negative, stereotypes. So here's negativity. And I love, a challenge. I'm like,
Yeah.
let's do it, So going back on to my did you know session, like you're familiar with GIFs and,
Yeah.
animations and how it changed the internet.
Yeah.
The inventor is a Black, Jewish woman.
Yeah. I had no idea. That's actually really cool to know.
Lisa Gold. I'm gonna butcher her name, but we're gonna put up her,
Yeah.
up her image, for this podcast, and also Mark Dean and Marianne as well, But these are legends,
Yeah.
and so when kids learn about them, in school,
Yeah.
they dream different, right? And when you have, dreams and you start thinking about, okay, well, what can I, accomplish?
Yeah.
And when people tell you to trust the process, you can't trust the process if you don't know what the process looks like.
Exactly. Or if you can't relate to the people that are telling you to trust the process. I agree. I think that is really a really important call out. Yeah, 100%.
No, absolutely. So that's where I see AI. I
Yeah.
see AI as a bridge. I see technology as a net job creator. I see education and tech and all of that as an equalizer. And because the computer does not care,
Yeah.
everyone just cares about what data, you're putting in, garbage out,
Yeah, exactly. No, it's so true. Yeah, it will be like that utility that helps make people smarter,
Yeah.
faster, more adept,
Confidence builder.
and across the board.
Like some of the things that I recommend, young people to use AI for is role playing, especially in interviews, you have
Yeah.
no idea where you're going to walk into, but you can use AI for role playing,
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely.
Actually, you can use it as a veteran salesman. You're going in and selling somebody and you're new to their industry.
Yeah.
You can use AI to like learn, about the business, about them, and so on.
Yeah.
So when you walk in, you have a tailored pitch.
Which is so cool. And
Yeah.
it alleviates so much time and energy that it takes to normally develop that. I agree. And I also think it's cool that there are so many use cases of AI in our day-to-day lives. Whether it's like something really mundane, like your Netflix recommendations that are
Yeah.
so tailored to what
Predictive analytics.
previously viewed, or Amazon, I think, does a great job of constantly recommending products to you based on what you've previously
They're
purchased.
the
and things
OGs
like
in that area.
Yeah, I think TikTok does. I think we talked about this, but like TikTok is great.
Mm-hmm.
I think that algorithm, it knows me so intimately that it is a little scary at times, but it's another great example of just like, that predictive,
Yeah.
algorithmic intelligence and learning.
Yeah, it's understanding your consumption, habits.
Yeah,
It's just like Spotify is great at what in terms of the ad, that is being delivered, to you because they know what your barbecue playlist.
yeah,
So
exactly.
make sure they recommend
Yeah.
certain, products.
Yeah. Yeah. And in all of those cases, it's like, it's not this like terrible, nefarious thing. It's making your experience, it's enhancing your experience,
Yeah,
and helping in different ways.
those cookies.
They're going away.
Anyway, you can opt out, or opt in. It's
Yeah.
up to you.
Oh man, I know all the pop-ups galore
Yeah,
and
and now
all
it's
that
just
good stuff.
becoming, and knowing I
lot.
appreciate it, but like I surrender.
I know. It's like, yes, I'll take all the cookies
Take
that you
all.
give. I accept all of them.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, so it's an interesting time, and I always tell folks that the investments that are being made right now and in the next 3 years are going to define the future of work for the next 2 decades.
Yeah.
Things are going to change rapidly, and you mentioned your time at your Chicago. I'm a member of the Polsky
Yeah.
um, entrepreneurial center, and so quantum computing is talked about um, in and around you Chicago. I mean, I think there's even a term that's used there, like quantum corridor or something.
Oh, wow.
But that might be a company. I don't know. I don't know. But I do want to ask you, since you've had a great career in digital marketing, in tech. What advice do you have to someone that's interested in joining that field?
Yeah, I think the biggest a few pieces of advice. I think one of the things I would say is that there's so much growth and there's so much opportunity right now. So don't think that you are, behind the curve. I would say we're in a place as an industry where it's like a joke, but everything's an ad network and everything is surface area for advertising. So, and the numbers kind of support that. So this year, digital media spend globally is going to exceed $600 billion. And that is a huge astronomical number. And it's kind of been on this up and to the right trajectory for the past few years. So I would say there's a ton of opportunity, and it's not from just the usual suspects. It's from, like if you think about the top tech IPOs of the last year, a lot of them were in advertising and marketing, whether that's Reddit or Instacart. So there are opportunities in sort of unusual places that aren't traditionally advertising businesses, but are going to evolve to be that because it's such a great revenue generator.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that agencies are a really great place to start your career because you get such an immersive training ground and you learn so much. But I would also caution that you have to be thoughtful about your tolerance for work-life balance or lack thereof, and sort of be really intentional about what you want that to look like for yourself. And then lastly, I would say to have a perspective. I think especially if you are coming to the industry from an underrepresented background, it's a very competitive space. Like media is really competitive. And so I think a great way to make yourself stand out is to have a perspective. It shows that you're paying attention and that you care. And I think it really will kind of set you above some other folks that may be in the space.
That is awesome advice.
Thank you.
And we'll make sure that we make a nice reel out of that. I mean,
Love a reel.
consumption habits have changed,
They have.
right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes, I create more, reels and, because of that's what people want, So, I mean, got to give people what they want. But reels also bring people to watch the full episode, right? So it's almost they're generating, leads,
Yeah, absolutely.
for you. But reels are also great because of the analytics. You can really see who's really looking at your content, and what they're looking at and so on. And then you're able to engage with folks in the comments,
Yeah.
instantly.
Mhm.
And so it's all exciting. But I don't know what's next, but I feel like we're going to go back, because everything is always, in cycles,
Mhm.
We're seeing Gen Z, bring back a lot of stuff from the 90s. We're seeing a lot of things that are nostalgia.
Yeah,
Our logo's got that 80s vibe.
it does. I
You
do. I love that.
You
Yeah.
like that, so I've been promising merch for a while.
Oh
Eventually
yeah,
it
you
will
have to
come.
drop some merch. Merch is a must. It's
Yeah,
it's so fun.
I'll get around to it. Maybe I'll do like an artist,
Yeah,
competition.
oh, that would be so cool.
Yeah, I think I just love doing, community,
Yeah.
work,
Yeah.
and so I think that would be a fun community,
Yeah,
you know,
definitely. I
uh,
love that.
project, and so yeah, I mean, for Tech in the Hood being a Chicago, podcast, I always, remind, folks that you can stay home and you can build, but it's okay to travel. It's okay to have, different experiences. So you traveling to New York and getting that experience and then bringing all that, home,
Yeah.
that's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing, So, um, you are our last episode for season 3.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm honored.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we'll see what season 4, brings,
Oh, yeah.
but, yeah, we're gonna do our best to be here, for a while, and
Yeah. No, I think it's
I
great.
might give you a call another time.
No, thank you for having me. This is really cool. I really love the platform and I loved our discussion as well. And congrats. This is such a great way to kind of make some of these topics a lot more user friendly and relatable to a wider audience. So I think that's really cool.
No, absolutely. I mean, my running joke right now is I'm a large language model.
Yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I speak multiple languages. I speak 16 dialects in Arabic.
Wow. I did not know that. That's actually so impressive. That's really cool.
Thank,
Yeah.
thank you. But then I also speak tech. There's just a ton of tech, jargon,
Yeah.
and so having, all that knowledge, it just
Yeah.
helps me, be more creative in terms of,
Absolutely.
thinking. I guess it also helps me be more natural when I'm being an entrepreneur and, all of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
No, it's so
that's my little
valuable.
joke element.
I love that. I think that's
Maybe that would go on the
so
merch.
cool. I am a large language model. I
I'm a
love
large
that.
language model.
Yeah. No, that's pretty
Third
cool.
culture kids are large language models, so
Yeah,
you
that's
heard
a
it
great
first.
tagline. I love that.
You heard it
Now you
first.
have to do it.
Now I gotta do it.
Yeah.
Now I gotta do it. Done. All right. Season 4, merch dropping. Stay
Coming
tuned.
soon.
And thank you for being with us today.